Okay, I think we're recording, guys. Now, this is the first of the Skype talks that I'm going to be giving to you all. So it's quite an important one, this one, because it kind of sets the theme of what we're going to be doing. I know some of you are here today, but basically, let me see. We're going to be, first of all, doing a talk about some spiritual aspect of life. And this first one is going to be quite important. The theme I've chosen, what did I write down? Why am I here? That's kind of the theme about what this first talk's about. And then afterwards we'll have a break. I'll then do a demonstration of mediumship after that break. And after this talk, if you like, let's have some questions and answers. I'm sure this will raise some interesting ideas in your minds. Now, where do I begin? Over the last 2 years, say, there's been kind of a bit of a revolution in the way I think about life and things. You know, I've spent my life working as a psychic medium. I've worked with Jane, as you know, on the telly. We've done a lot of work around the world, and our work has been primarily to give proof of the survival of the personality after death. That is, prove life after death to people. So we're no strangers to the paranormal. We've been doing extraordinary work. Sometimes I just don't know where these ideas come from. You know, we're just sort of able to tell people things that just baffle me. You know, how do I know that? You know, and same with Jane's work. And of course, same with some of the people we've seen. We've seen remarkable mediums such as Doris Stokes in the past, who said incredible things to us. Gordon Higginson, who gave extraordinary proof of life after death with amazing evidence and verifications. So my life has been very much tied up with mediumship, of course. And but then a point came in my life where I started to question a lot of things. And I would have said this was just over 2 years ago, really now. No, maybe more than that, come to think of it. But a crisis sort of came in my life, as it does. And often when these crises come, these are often turning points that take us onto a new path and give us a new direction to go in, you know. Now, for me, it happened because Google did some nasty things to my website, basically. I know this is very materialistic, but basically I was getting 150,000 hits a day. They decided to do some tweak to the algorithm, and I ended up with about 2,000 hits a day. So all my sort of business model was smashed overnight. An absolute shock. And it wasn't just me. When that new algorithm change came out, it absolutely wrecked lots of what you call the mom and pop businesses in America. You know, all the big businesses suddenly did great. All the small businesses that could sort of find a niche on the internet were destroyed. And with it, it really destroyed, it destroyed my online community too, that so many of you have spent time with and loved so much. And it just wrecked it. You know, it's still going, but, you know, not with the huge numbers we used to have coming all the time. That's more intimate. Actually, in some ways it's better. But at the time, oh my God, what a shock. And then some really close friends died as well. And close spiritual friends. And simultaneously, I was beginning to have a lot of concerns. Bear with me, battery. I was beginning to have a lot of real major concerns about where I was going with all this mediumistic work, because, you know, I was looking out there and on television, people were just getting so greedy, you know. The theatre demonstrations, I mean, they're charging something like £20 a seat, filling it with 2,000 or 3,000, 2,000 odd people and more, and you see how much money these guys are making, never giving anything back, and on a sort of big ego trip. And, you know, and frankly, I just got to the point where I was thinking, why am I doing this? What is the point of all this work? Was I'd given up a life as an advertising agent and making good money and all the rest of it. I could have had all the material things easier in a different direction. And yet here was everybody else milking it. And on top of that, you know, Twitter and all the rest had come into power. And now every Tom, Dick and Harry was a psychic. You know, you look on Facebook and everybody's a psychic and a medium, an empath, an aura reader, all these things, you know. I mean, I used to be able to count the number of mediums in the UK, really. Any mediums that I would have thought were any real good. Because spiritualism is a small world. I'd say about 5, maybe 10 if we're lucky. 10 good mediums, and that's pushing it. Now we seem to have hundreds, thousands, millions of them. Everybody that has ever picked up a set of tarot cards as a medium, so it goes on. I was beginning to think, look, Craig, something's going wrong here. Perhaps you're being told to stop. Perhaps this whole model of what you're doing shouldn't be done. Why are you doing this? I know people get helped, but there's just too much. It's all been watered down to the point that it becomes mindless, mindless trash, like trash TV. So, I was getting really desperate. And, well, desperate's the wrong word, but I was getting quite low with it in some respects. So much had been taken away. And all my ideals about setting an online community and reaching out to people kind of been smashed overnight as well. And some of the main people died as well. So one night I then had a dream. Now, a lot of you know that I'm a follower or I don't like the word follower or devotees. I like Sadhguru Sai Baba, who at the same time, pretty much when that happened, a few weeks before, died. So that was another sort of crisis, because he died, we seemed earlier than he should have done. All that's debatable. But anyway, so all that was happening, and then I had a dream one night, and I'm sat in Varanasi. Now, I've been to Varanasi. Varanasi, if you don't know, is the old Benares that used to be called Benares, where they burn the bodies of the dead. It's on the Ganges, and then the ashes are thrown into the river Ganges. And I've been there. It's an amazing place. At night, all the smoke, and it's eerie place, but also deeply spiritual as well, with all the chants of Shiva coming across the water as you row across the Ganges. Oh, amazing things. But anyway, back to my dream. I was in the dream in the place, because we stayed right on what was called the Sindhi Ghat, which is one of the older ghats like an outlet onto the Ganges, and where they burnt the bodies. And I was sat there where the holy men sit, because quite often the holy men sit in the ash, And I was sat there on my yoga mat, looking out at the Ganges, and meditating and looking out. And as I'm sat there, I see a pair of feet next to me on my right-hand side, and I see with the orange robe, and of course I look up, and it's Sai Baba. Oh, Sai Baba. And he looks at me and he says, "Why are you here?" I don't know. Why am I here? Why are you here? That's what I'd like to know. What's my direction? Why am I here? Why are you here? He said 3 times, and walked away. And then I woke from the dream. Okay, so there's an interesting dream. But those of you that have heard about Sai Baba or follow Sai Baba will understand that these dreams are not like your normal dreams, because they're super, super real for a start. And Sai Baba says that you cannot dream of him without him willing it. So those of us that have taken a lot of interest in Sai Baba see this as a real experience. This is not just a dream, this is a real encounter. The same thing can happen with other gurus too. He's called an avatar rather than a guru, but if someone dreams of Jesus, it might be the same. Someone dreams of their guru, you could take it the same. But anyway, for me, I woke up from that dream and thought, what is this dream all about? All he said to me is, "Why are you here?" Now that has multiple possible levels, doesn't it? Firstly, he said, "Why are you here?" I'm sat there in Varanasi. So my interpretation of the dream at the time was, this is a place of death. This is the last place where a spiritual person leaves the world. So maybe, because of all that's happened, my work as a spiritualist medium is over. Maybe I'm going to die. And I thought about it deeply, and I thought, I don't want to say this to Jane or anybody, but I think my time's come. I thought absolutely certain that was it, that was why Sai Baba had come to me. Why are you here? What's the big question of life? And I thought, because I was in Varanasi, I had to answer that question quickly, because I was going to go. And then, of course, this is the other levels of that, why are you here? Because, why are we in this life in the first place? You know, there's that other level. You know, why was I born? Why am I in this life? What is the purpose of being in this life here for me? Not just as all of us together, because we all have to ask that exact same question, but also for me personally, there was that question asked, why am I here? So that very kind of simple dream kind of was right in my mind for a long time, you know. There was something very, very deeply affecting me in that dream. Now, one of the residents of that dream was still in my mind. I had a phone call from, well, not a phone call, I had a message via Facebook, of all things. One of those things I kind of hate in some ways, but, you know, it came through Facebook. An old friend called Vivek. Now, he's an Indian friend, and he was also interested in Sai Baba. We've been talking when the internet was first getting going back in the 90s by email for a long time, so therefore, and we would been talking about Sai Baba and spiritual things, and I asked him, I said, I'd found out right back in the 90s about this thing in India called the Nadi leaves, this oracle. And there's some of it on the web now, but most of it, and I must say this right at the beginning, before you start getting, you know, over enthusiastic about what I'm going to tell you, because I'm really, you'll find out that I'm very intrigued by this, but there's a lot of cons there. You know, just as there are a lot of cons going on nowadays in within psychic world, and even bigger than that, there's an awful lot of self-deception going on, and odd beliefs coming forward, and, you know, not very rational people, and people, and also greedy people. You know, all of it. The same applies to India. It's just because it's India doesn't mean it's any more spiritual necessarily always. So there's bad ones. But, excuse me, I asked Vivek some years ago about the Nadi oracles. I wanted to track these down. I'd heard about them through a colonel that I'd spoken to in India, a long retired colonel who'd kind of got so involved in them, and he'd spent his life reading them and tracking them down, and found a few people, but I couldn't ever travel to India. It was just too difficult. I didn't have the money for starters. And I'd always wanted to know about this, and I'd even started writing a sort of novel around about the idea, you know, the concept of what is destiny. But these leaves, this Nadi oracle, allegedly, will tell you everything about your life, your past life, in absolute 100% detail, including the time you will die. Vivek contacted me and said he'd actually tracked down some of the Nadi readers and was thinking of helping to bring it to the West in a way that was going to be helpful to people and to avoid all this dodgy stuff that was going on. So I thought, oh wow, Vivek, that's fabulous. And after all these years, we you know, it's like sometimes with friends, you know, years might go by and you're back where you left off, you know. And Vivek's one of those friends. And I said, yeah. He said, would you like to give it a try? Because I'd like to really thoroughly test it properly to make sure there's absolutely no cheating going on, so that we can be 100% clear that there's no oddities here. There's nothing weird. No cheating, basically. I said, yes, let's do it. And I said, I can spot cheats because I've seen so many of them in the psychic world. I can spot self-deluded people sometimes too, and I can spot it. So I can test it for you, Vivek. That's great. We'll have a go. And so what we did, we decided to do a reading with one of the Nadi readers by Skype. Now, in order to do this, I made sure that there was absolutely no way that Nadi reader could know who I was. And Vivek made the same. We set up, they knew who Vivek was because he'd been in contact with them. They didn't know who I was. And I made up a false ID on Skype. Actually, the one I'm doing this demo is the original one I used. At that time, no information on there whatsoever about names or anything like that. I just put the word Nadi in everything, you know. And my email address, untraceable. I made a difficult to trace email address. And then I sent to Vivek my thumbprint, because that's all this oracle needs, your thumb, right? And I have a right-hand thumb for a man, and sent him a print of my right-hand thumb, again, checking all the way, there's nothing any way could check me. And then we set up a Skype meeting after he found the leaves. Now, what happens with the thumbprint? The thumbprint actually... there goes the phone. It always does when you do this. Right, I'm going to keep going. the thumbprint actually will help you find the actual bundle of the leaves, you know. So once you've found the bundle from the thumbprint, they then go through the leaves one at a time to find your personal leaf. So what actually happens is, so all they had was a thumbprint to go with, right? And then by interview, by Skype, we then find my leaf. So what actually happens, he went through the leaves one at a time. So first leaf, it asks a kind of a weird question. I think the first, if I can remember right, it was something to the effect of, you know, do you import precious metals? No, it's an odd thing to have in a reading. Next leaf, are you in a court case at the moment? No. And next leaf, I can't remember what they were. There was all sorts of strange things. Have you retired as a sadhu? No. Do you have a business that imports? Do you have a bakery business or something like that? No. We're going through this. Now it takes a while. There's 20 minutes of this with all sorts of strange questions going on. It can take up to an hour or more. Sometimes the leaf's never found apparently. And you finally get to one, and he goes, "Is your ex-wife's name Tina?" What? I mean, nobody knew that. I mean, in all the books, in everything else, I've never mentioned my ex-wife's name. You know, I mean, you don't in your writings. You know, so that was yes. I said, of course it is. Yes, my ex-wife's name Tina. Oh, is that a lucky chance, Tina? In these Sanskrit words, in these Tamil words, you know, Tamil writings that have been translated from ancient Tamil, that have been translated before that from Sanskrit, because these leaves, you know, are 500 years old, then they've been carbon dated, but they've been copied and copied and copied and copied and copied. And they claim to be up to 5,000 to 10,000 years old. You know, one hell of a time that is. So anyway, okay, all right. So Tina, yes, looks at the next line on the leaf. Is your mother's name Ethel? Yes. She has two names. Yes. Ethel and Vicky. Yes. Now my mother's name is Ethel, but most people know her as Vicky. And he certainly would never have known that, because my mum's never been on the internet in her life. I don't think there's a thing on there. She'd be a good recruit for Anonymous, you know. So that information would have been hard to find. And then he goes, your father's name Donald? Yes. And then he goes, you have one brother, one sister? Yes. Brother married, sister widowed? Yes. Boom. What's going on here, you know? And then he said, you were born in a hospital? Yes. You were born to a good family? Yes. I'm trying to remember the sequence. And then he said, and there's none of this. It was just yes. I was no feeding me or getting questions at me or asking me things that could give him clues. It just bang, bang, bang. And then we went through a number of questions like this. You know, you've worked as an artist. Yes, I've been a painter. You've been you write books. Yes. Your name is Craig. Yes. Your birthday is the 24th of January, 1954. Boom. No, that's not information you usually give out on the web. I mean, it's out there now, but blimey, you know. And then the next thing he says, you were born at 1:30 in the morning. So he knew all this information about me, right down to the moment I was born, and lots of other things that came out when he started to read more of the leaf to give confirmation, because I obviously wanted lots of confirmation, and it was all there. He said, like I said, he said I'd been a painter. He said my father had worked for the government, and in the tax. Now, my brother doesn't even know that my dad's first job was working as a in the tax collection department, collecting rents or something in the tax department. Really odd, because even the family don't know those facts. And it was coming out with fact after fact after fact about my life, about Jane's work. You know, my wife is a medium too, and that you worked as a spiritualist, you're working spiritually, you devoted your life to working spiritually, blah, 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 all these things, and how I structure my business, and how Jane's work works separately from mine, and we give to the tax man in different ways and all this. He knew everything about my life, you know. The whole structure of everything and what I'd done, it was just astonishing. And then the oracle says, and one of the reasons that you consulted this oracle is because you want to know why you are here. Why I am here. That's what that dream is about. And he then proceeded to give me the reasons that I am here. In my life, the questions he went through was the fact that I had, even now, even as I describe it, it still boggles my mind to talk about it. But he said that he went into my past lives and told me about my past lives that I'd led and that had brought me to this life and why I'm a medium now, because I'd done other work much longer ago in India when I lived in India, and had achieved quite a lot as in a yogi type status. But now I had to bring it into this life, and the purpose in my life was to get the message of spirituality out to the people of the world. And it went through how I could work too, because the other thing, like I explained, I was getting really upset about the whole idea. Is I don't want to be charging for psychic readings and being like almost like someone that's at the fairground or in the marketplace selling these beautiful spiritual things as if they're just wares to be sold, And so that was all there in my mind too. And I didn't say anything through all this. He just telling me, no feedback from me. He said yes, yes, yes. And he says, the thing is that what you were being told is you want to also. It says here you want to find a way that you can work for nothing. Yes, and it showed me a way that I could structure my life so that I can do things like this that we're doing now, so that I can work for nothing. And show me how basically what I'm going to do with my life is to set up a foundation which people can contribute to help move this whole thing forward and build centres around the world. Okay, so that's one hell of a tall order, isn't it? After all what I've talked about of what happened, what a tall order that was. It started to happen. And the thing is, I thought, well, I can't change my whole life based upon this one reading. So what I did, did the same thing as I did with Vivek, but did it 2 more times, and with 2 different readers who were hundreds of miles apart. They were both all in southern India, but they were not in contact with each other. And again, there was absolutely no way they could know my thumbprint. All they had was my thumbprint to go from. Okay, you could say they could compare it, but it was a hell of a job to do all that. And there was no way these readers knew anything who I was beforehand. And totally separate, lovely people that we'd found, lovely readers, and they told me exactly the same things. So there's my life completely swung on its head. I've written about all this in my book called Messages from the Universe, but I think sometimes when you hear it on Skype, it takes a different flavour because you can see how it's affected me in some respects. So there we go. I'd had all this, and so I wasn't going to die. That Varanasi dream was the turning point. But there were important things ahead for me, and I couldn't. And I know I had 3 lots of confirmation, all about what I had to do. But what these Nadi leaves also did for me, and again, let me reaffirm, be careful. Don't go out in the net checking some of these readers. They're bad news, right? Because people can rip you off. And here comes how they could rip you off, because, this part could be taken advantage of badly with people. But basically what the Nadis have are remedies in them. Formulas that you can use to make the negative effects of your karma lessen and increase the positive effects to help your life move forward as it's meant to. I thought I'm going to treat this not as a prophecy for my life, because it also, gives me the day I will die, it's giving me the exact date I will die, and I'm pretty sure from what it said I know how I will die, when, and the date, and so there we go. That's a pretty tough one to take on. Strangely enough, I was already ready for that information, because I thought it was going to be next week, when I took it, because I thought that's, with that dream, I thought, I'm going to get the news here. This is going to be a spiritual message to tell me when I'm going to die and what to do. And also talk about what to do. In that Nadi readings too, it also said in there, you write books about what life is like after death. What people do after death, he said. Of course, one of my best-known books is What to Do When You're Dead. I thought, amazing that was actually written pretty much word for word. And in more than one Nadi, too. Amazing. Where was I? Okay, so now what the Nadi has also are what's called remedies. These are kind of like karmic sort of solutions. So if you've got problems following through into your life from your past karma. Now let's see, karma is not just good, not just bad, it's the whole process. Everything that exists, everything that we are is the result of karma. This body I'm in, my bald head, is all due to karma of one form or another, you know. It's karmic. Everything is karmic. Everything that happens to you is karmic. It's basically like Jesus said, isn't it? That as you sow, so you will reap. And the good you do unto others always comes back to you, you know. So basically, the Nadi gives you these ideas that says, well, once you know the karmic consequences of why you're here and where you're going, you can use karmic remedies to change your life, to make life better for you, and to bring about the good effects and negate the negative things. So the things like the illnesses that are shown in the Nadi, you can instead make them better. For example, I was talking to one Nadi reader later on, going down the line, about a woman that was told that she's going to die in a car accident. She did all the remedies. She had the car accident on the date, exactly as shown, but she'd done all these karmic remedies, and she stepped out of the car unharmed. So, you know, that was a pretty good remedy, if you ask me. You know, the mind-boggling stuff, guys. This is mind-boggling stuff. So, okay, so these remedies. So I thought, I'm going to do these remedies. And this is where the next stage comes in to why I'm here and what I did, because I decided to go to India to investigate these things. And I'm going to have to sort of talk about these things a little bit later. But basically what I did, I went to India and I met the Nadi readers, and I went to the holy places in India, and I met some of the holy men there. For example, there was one incredible one. We were going around India, and we were using the Nadi leaves almost like a sat-nav. It was telling us where to be at what time. And he was using his almanac to work out where to go. And it said that you will meet a holy man at this place at this time. So we went to this place this time. And just as we climbed up this really unmade-up road, if you could call it that, all dust, the car was really struggling. And then it suddenly gave up the ghost and it broke down, steam pouring out of the engine. Done for. What the hell? The whole thing's done. This is ridiculous. We're stuck in the middle of nowhere. We've got the car broken down, steam coming out. I had no shoes on, and even if you stand on the ground, it's so hot you can hardly stand up. And I'm stood there, and they're looking at they're looking at the car, and I'm looking at the landscape. And what happens? A holy man steps out of the bushes behind me and walks right past me, right to my shoulder, right here, boom, right that. Whoa, what's that? You know. Now this holy man, you've seen what some of these Indians holy men look like. He was all covered in ash, completely covered in ash. He had a sort of a bouffant, sort of beehive sort of type mat of hair that was all over here and in a tied in knots, all in a mess. And his eyes were as red as fire. He was absolutely, you know, the white of the eyes was deep post office red. And he looked almost fierce, almost demonic, you know. And he walked past me, you know, whoomp like that. And I just follow him, you know. I follow in his footprints, literally follow in his shadow behind him. And this was the exact time, the exact place that the Nadi had said. And this man, you know, they say he never eats. He sleeps. He can sleep in a burning fire. He is asleep in the embers of a full-on fire. This isn't fire walking. This is fire sleeping. He sleeps in the thing. He has incredible healing powers, apparently, and he sleeps in a cave. He's a bit like St. Francis in some ways, because like St. Francis gave up all his material goods and just lived lived really on nothing, you know. But he was a rich man, St. Francis, before he gave up things, and so was this man. He was almost like the Indian equivalent of St. Francis, with these burning eyes, you know. But it's like these eyes that would burn away all the karma. There was something powerful about them. It was almost and there was an anger in his eyes, but a divine anger that said, "Look, stop being so bloody stupid." Boom, you know. Oh. Anyway, I can't go into too much detail, but I'll talk about this in other things. But basically, I followed him round, and we went through the temple opened up, and he went into this temple where he hadn't been for nearly a year or more. and suddenly we're following him around, and the temple comes alive because he's arrived, and everybody's banging the music, and everything's. And I follow him round because I followed him from outside. Followed him around, and then eventually he sits down, and I thought that was it, and I'm just about to go away, and someone comes over to me, calls me, and he wants to speak to you. And when you speak to him, you have to kneel down in front. You put your hands on his feet. He's sat up higher like that. You put your hands on his feet, and I can't understand a word he says. First of all, he's telling someone off in the distance, some boy, he says, "Go away, blah blah blah." So he's shouting, And then he looks, almost ignoring me, and looks to the translator of the Nadi man's translator, because he also has a man, and speaks to him and says things. Now, then the Nadi man's translator, Gopi, says to me, tells Mr. Prakash, who then tells me afterwards what he said. And he confirmed every single thing, or the main important things in the Nadi oracle, absolutely word for word. Except Mr. Prakash, who was my third Nadi reader, didn't know those ones because they were not included in his Nadi. So he was quoting the very first and second readers that I had, which he knew nothing about. So, there you go. Why am I here? Why are you here? We all have a personal destiny of some sort, don't we? We're all here for a purpose. I think I've found what mine is. I think mine has a spiritual remit, and I want it to be that way. I'm going to follow that. I may be completely wrong. None of it may happen, but I think to myself, what an amazing model that I've been given there. Something that I could perhaps aim towards and try to make my life better. Because all this has also encouraged me to do tremendous amount of charitable work. Because by the charitable work, by the service you do to others, you actually are doing it directly to yourself. It's the most selfish thing you can do to help others, because you help yourself at the same time. It's all one, And once you realise it's all one, once you realise that there's no difference between me and you, and me and even this computer screen we're looking at, it's all the same. It's all a reflection of the one consciousness. And when you do service, you're just doing exactly what the universe is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be growing in love, I'm off on my high horse, but why are you here? Eh? Ask yourself that, because in your own life, there are things that you're probably here to sort out. The negative things that have come into your life are there. Who created those? Oh, these people are terrible to me. Look, they do all this, they do that, they harm me. No, they don't. You did it all to yourself. Every single little bit of it. You take that on board. Not easy. Not easy. Particularly when it comes to illness and disability and things like that. Did we create that for ourselves? Look, obviously we have to serve people, but you have to ask yourself, where did that come from? And in our deep mind somewhere, there's still like the energy of those memories there. We may not have the actual energies of themselves, but there's the residue of those energies are in there. So we can find out in ourselves where we've gone wrong in our past karma, and we can remedy it. And the way to remedy it is to do good to others, to do good things just for the sake of it. Even if it don't cure your problem, still do it. Do it anyway. And in that way, we have better lives, we become better people, we create a better world, and with all these terrible things going on in the world, there's not much we say, oh, we can't do anything about it. Yes, we can. We are it. We can change it more than any politician, more than any bombs and guns and all the rest of it, by just living with that idea of seva, service, of doing things good for the sake of it. So I think I better stop there, and I'm going to take some questions now from you. But hopefully you enjoyed that, and it's made you think a bit. And for those of you watching this on YouTube and so forth, you're welcome to come and join me for these Skype talks and the demonstrations, which you'll also be able to find here on YouTube. And so I'm going to have a rest now, and then I'm going to do a demonstration of mediumship. So if you want to join, you're welcome to come along to my website and have a look in the events section. The website is psychics.co.uk, and then if you go /events, that will take you straight into the section where the next one's shown. So I hope you've enjoyed this. We can only get a certain number in on Skype, so you'll understand that I can't get everybody in, but I hope to extend this somehow on the web. Okay, thank you folks.